Hi everyone, hope we're doing well. For today's video, I want to discuss where you should be placing your increases when creating a raglan design. This is definitely one of those topics that I feel like is definitely glazed over quite a lot in the crochet community, because I feel like a lot of us understand that when creating a raglan design, you want your turning stitch to be in the middle of your back panel, and you want your side panels to be smaller than your front and back panel. But I feel like anything else we do is just kind of guesstimating where these increases should go. And whilst sometimes this is going to turn out fine, most of the time the dimensions of your final jumper isn't going to be exactly what you're after. And I'll try and quickly explain to you why this is happening. We have three kind of main influential steps. Our first one being placing our increases, our second one being actually doing those increases, and then we separate off our body panel and our two arm panels, which will become sleeves. So stick with me for a bit. At this final step, we are adding the same amount of chains either side. We're adding this circumference to our body panel, but we're also adding this circumference to our sleeve panels. So if we think about that step, there's no way that we can differentiate between how big we want just our front panel to be compared to the whole circumference of our sleeve. And then if we go back to the step before this where we were just increasing, we are increasing each panel at the same rate each row, because most if not all raglan designs will tell you to add the same amount of stitches either side of a panel, no matter whether it's the front and back panel or the side panel. So for this step, there's no way for us to differentiate the amount of length that we are adding to our panels, because we're adding the same amount of length to each panel at a time. So what does this mean in the grand scheme of things? The amount of rows that you add to your raglan design is going to influence the final measurements, but the difference between the width of just your front or your back panel and the circumference of your sleeves needs to be apparent from where you place your increases in step one. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to show you guys how to implement everything that I've just talked about, both through collecting your own measurements as well as measurements from a pre-existing garment. So I have some tape measure here, and I'm going to quickly show you where you would measure. So I have this goose and gander jumper, which I want to try and replicate the size of this jumper just because I really like the fit. And I will show you guys how to do that now. So I'm going to start off with the body. So I'm going to measure from one side to the other. So I'm going to call that 55 centimeters. And if we go to our sleeves, we can see that this is 22, but to get the full circumference of this whole sleeve, I need to double this number. So 22 times by 2 is 44 centimeters. So I'm going to show you how I would take my body measurement. I'm going to wrap this around my body around 2 inches underneath my armpit. And when taking your bodily measurements, you want to try and keep in a more neutral position as opposed to like measuring it like this. So what I try and do is I try and kind of place it like this and stand normally. And with this body measurement, you want to get this number and divide it by 2, because we're measuring the difference between the total circumference of our sleeve, but only the width of our front panel, which would be kind of like here to here. Then we're going to do the same with our arm, and when it comes to the arm, I just try and find kind of the biggest part of my arm near the top of my arm. So we've taken down these two measurements. Most likely this number, which is the width of your front and back panel, is going to be bigger than this number. So we're going to take the width of our front and back panel and take away the circumference of our sleeve to find out the difference between these two numbers. So I have a total of 11 centimeters more in my front and back panel than I do in the circumference of my sleeve. So that means that when I plan where my increases are going to go, I'm going to make sure the front and back panel is 11 centimeters larger than the side panel. Now we've done all of our hard work when it comes to maths, we're ready to start placing our increases. Our first step is to crochet a collar or a chain length that we're going to start our raglan design from. And then you want to simply just fold it in half because this is going to give us the starting point of just one side panel and one front or back panel. So mine is 23 centimeters. We also know that our front panel is going to be 11 centimeters larger than our side panel. So I can rewrite this as a side panel plus a side panel plus 11, because a side panel plus 11 is just our front or our back panel. So I can use this information to work out that two of our side panels would be 12 centimeters, so one of our side panels is going to be 6 centimeters. And now we have this number, we can work out that our front panel is going to be 17 centimeters. And you might want to double check just by adding these two together that we still get this number, but this is kind of just basic algebra. So anyone that says algebra isn't useful obviously hasn't made a raglan crochet jumper before. What I've written here is more kind of the theory as to what I'm doing. The actual calculation that you'll be doing is you'll measure this width here, then you will take away your difference, so 23 minus 11, and then whatever you have left you divide by 2 to work out your side panel, and then you use this measurement to figure out what your front and your back panel would be. So I've just marked all of my stitches and I've run out of stitch markers, so I thought I would share that you can use scrap yarn or safety pins or bobby pins instead. I'm going to quickly explain how I've done this, but I won't go into too much detail. So I had a total of 112 rows, but because I'm using a moss stitch, things are going to work a little bit differently, because in every second row there is going to be a single crochet and the chain is going to go in that alternate row that we're skipping. So I counted how many single crochets I could fit along this whole collar, which would be half of 112, which is 56. I then took 56 and halved it into 28 to figure out how many stitches or single crochets I had to share between the side and the front slash back panel. I started off with how big the side panels were, so I would judge the amount of stitches that I would need just for my side panel using that 6 centimeter guide. So I split up 28 by having a front and back panel of 20 stitches and a side panel of 8 stitches. So this is 10 stitches, this is 8, this is 20, this is 8, and this is 10. That's what I was talking about earlier, about making sure your meeting point is in the middle of your back panel. So you would just get your back panel number and divide it by 2 and put that either side at the start and the end of your row. And if we look, the distance of my side panel is around 6 centimeters and the distance of my front panel is just under 17. So I'm very happy with that ratio. So I can just go ahead and start crocheting. So that's going to be it from me today. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. I have a lot of crochet content on my channel just like this video, so make sure you are subscribed. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and comment. I create crochet patterns which I sell on Ravelry and Etsy. I'll also leave my other social media links in the description below as well. I hope you have a good rest of your day and I will see you in the next video. Bye.